Yeah, hello.
Yeah,
How, Mr. Bubu, you were telling something.
yeah. I'm just saying, it started from yesterday itself.
अच्छा अच्छा. So कल एक सेशन था, आज एक सेशन है, ऐसा मतलब every day you are
Yeah,
having
for
one
different
session.
different topics.
Okay.
Okay, we'll be on hold for some time, then we'll start.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
You can hear me, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. You are audible.
Okay, great. So do we need to switch on the webcam as well?
Sir, as you wish, sir. If you want to continue with the video, then you may be. Otherwise, you may present your presentation.
Okay, I can do. I mean, the webcam I can keep it open because when I was clicking on the video button, it is showing 3 dots, but nothing is coming on. So I was wondering if there is anything wrong. Yeah, I think I have to do it from my laptop. Yeah, I'm visible right now.
Yes, sir. You are visible.
Yes.
Yeah, hi everyone.
Hello, sir.
Yeah,
Hi, Manoj.
yeah. So you are based out of Gurgaon right now.
Delhi, Maldives.
Okay, okay. Yeah. Good to see you.
Good to see you, sir. Good to see you too. So first you are going to take right. I think Bibhu, if you can brief us or somebody in the team, how much time is allocated? How do we need to go ahead?
30 minutes each presentation.
Okay.
Okay.
So there will be question answer session also after presentation.
So after the both presentation, there will be 5-minute question answer session.
Okay.
A very good afternoon to all the patrons, dignitaries, delegates, leaders of the automotive world, friends from academia, ladies and gentlemen. I, Asta, take the absolute pleasure to welcome all of you. On the behalf of International Center for Automotive Technology, extend a very warm welcome to all of you for joining in the webinar on the renewable energy and idea of India towards environment. This webinar will be focused on renewable energy and environment, social and governance (ESG), major initiatives like climate change, net zero by 2070 will be covered in the webinar. Future mobility solutions like EV and its positive impact on environment along with youth participation. Positive impact on environment along with mission to achieve net zero and idea of India towards environment. Through this webinar, we have set a virtual to connect the industry and indulge to acquaint ourselves with emerging renewable energy and trends. Now, it is my privilege to read out the message on the behalf of Dr. Mahendranath Pandey, Minister Heavy Industries, and Shri Krishnapal Gurjar, Minister of State Heavy Industries. आजादी का अमृत महोत्सव प्रगतिशील भारत के 75वें वर्ष का उत्सव मनाने और जनता, संस्कृति तथा देश की उपलब्धियों के गौरवशाली इतिहास को स्मरण करने की भारत सरकार की एक पहल है। इसी पहल के तहत भारी उद्योग मंत्रालय 10 से 16 जनवरी 2022 तक आजादी का अमृत महोत्सव मना रहा है। भारी उद्योग मंत्रालय ऑटोमोटिव और कैपिटल गुड्स क्षेत्र सहित विश्व स्तर पर प्रतिस्पर्धी हरित और तकनीक आधारित विनिर्माण के विकास पर ध्यान केंद्रित कर रहा है, जिससे विकास और रोजगार सृजन को बढ़ावा मिलता है। इस विजन को साकार करने के लिए मंत्रालय ने भारत में इलेक्ट्रिक वाहनों का तीव्र अंगीकरण और विनिर्माण स्कीम, राष्ट्रीय उन्नत केमिस्ट्री सेल एसीसी, बैटरी भंडारण कार्यक्रम, ऑटोमोबाइल और ऑटो घटक के लिए उत्पादन संबद्ध प्रोत्साहन पीएलआई स्कीम, भारतीय कैपिटल गुड्स क्षेत्र में प्रतिस्पर्धा संवर्धन स्कीम आदि सहित कई पहले शुरू की हैं। भारी उद्योग मंत्रालय ने अपने सीपीएससी और स्वायत्त निकायों के सहयोग से आजादी का अमृत महोत्सव के समारोहों के लिए नवाचार, विनिर्माण, उत्कृष्टता, आत्मनिर्भर भारत, पर्यावरण और वहनीयता, स्वच्छ भारत, स्वतंत्रता संग्राम आदि विषयों पर ध्यान केंद्रित करते 10 से 16 जनवरी 2022 के सप्ताह के दौरान देश भर में 40 से अधिक स्थानों पर एक्शन 75, अचीवमेंट 75, आइडियाज 75, रिजॉल्व 75 जैसे विषयों को केंद्र में रखते हुए कार्यक्रमों और क्रियाकलापों की श्रृंखला की योजना बनाई है। इन कार्यक्रमों में लोकार्पण, नए उत्पादों की शुरुआत, प्रौद्योगिकी प्रदर्शनियां, तकनीकी प्रदर्शनियां, सेमिनार, वेबिनार, विशेषज्ञ व्याख्यान, योग और ध्यान सत्र, स्वास्थ्य शिविर, भूले हुए स्वतंत्रता सेनानी नायकों को याद करना, स्वतंत्रता संग्राम और आंदोलनों आदि पर बच्चों के बीच सांस्कृतिक कार्यक्रमों, स्वच्छता अभियानों और प्रतियोगिताओं का आयोजन करना इत्यादि शामिल है। यह सुनिश्चित करने पर जोर दिया गया है कि सप्ताह भर चलने वाले इन समारोहों का आयोजन होल ऑफ गवर्नमेंट अप्रोच से किया जाए और सभी कार्यक्रमों में जन भागीदारी हो। कार्यक्रमों के दौरान कोविड-19 के अनुरूप परस्पर सुरक्षित दूरी बनाए रखने और स्वच्छता प्रोटोकॉल सुनिश्चित करने के निर्देश भी जारी किए गए हैं। हमारा अनुरोध है कि आप सब आजादी का अमृत महोत्सव के तहत दिनांक 10 से 16 जनवरी 2022 तक भारी उद्योग मंत्रालय के इस आयोजन में अपनी सहभागिता अवश्य करें। Thank you, sir, for your valuable message for all of us on the auspicious occasion of celebration of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will now commence the inaugural session. Sri Dinesh Tyagi, Director, International Center for Automotive Technology, has sent a special video message for all the attendees who have not joined today.
In India today, we face two kinds of crises, environmental and developmental. On one hand, we are still struggling with the problems of inequality, poverty, and improving human development indicators. And on the other, environmental pollution and ecological destruction is now a runaway problem. Both of these crises are also interacting and reinforcing each other. And this is best reflected in our energy sector. India is largely dependent on coal to meet its energy needs. Coal meets more than 50% of our current commercial energy needs and generates more than 70% of electricity. We are the third largest producer of coal in the world after China and the US, but the energy from coal comes at a huge environmental and health cost. The challenge before India is how to meet its energy requirement without compromising the ecology of the country, and in addition, we have to be mindful of the looming danger of climate change. Climate change is already impacting the water and agriculture sector of our country, and we cannot afford to let global temperatures rise or exceed 2 degrees centigrade from the pre-industrial era, Even 2 degrees would devastate many vulnerable communities and ecosystems. India, therefore, must work with other countries to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions and control the rising temperatures. In such a situation, we ourselves cannot have a fossil fuel dominant energy future. The current trends demand that we develop an energy strategy that is based on electricity as a prime mover, and this electricity is generated from renewable energy resources. This would mean that we come out with a new integrated energy policy that charts a roadmap for a renewable electricity future. Our current energy policy of 2006 is primarily focused on developing fossil fuel resources for electricity and direct use of oil and gas for transportation, industrial usage, and for cooking. But just moving to renewable electricity won't be sufficient. We need a renewable electricity future that is affordable and is accessible to all. Renewable energy is energy that is collected from renewable resources that are naturally replenished by nature on a human time scale. It includes sources such as sunlight, wind, rain, tides, waves, and geothermal heat, etc. About 20% of the human global energy consumption is renewable, including almost 30% of the electricity. Renewable power is booming as innovation brings down costs and starts to deliver on the promise of a clean energy future. This means that renewable are increasingly displacing the dirty fossil fuels in the power sector, offering the benefit of lower emissions in carbons and other types of pollutions. But not all sources of energy marketed as renewable are beneficial to the environment. Biomass and large hydroelectric dams create difficult trade-offs when considering the impact on wildlife, climate change, and habitats and other issues. India is world's third largest consumer of electricity and world's third largest of renewable energy producer, with 38% of the total installed energy capacity in 2020 coming from renewable resources. E&Y in 2021, in their report, Attractive Index RECAI ranked India third behind US and China. In 2016, Paris Agreement's intended nationally determined contributions targets, India made a commitment of producing 50% of its total electricity from non-fossil fuel by 2030. In 2018, India's Central Electricity Authority set a target of producing 50% of the total electricity from non-fossil fuels by 2030. India has also set a target of producing 175 gigawatt by 2022 and 500 gigawatt by 2030 from renewable energy. India Initiative, the International Solar Alliance ISA, is now an alliance of 121 countries. India was world's first country to set up a Ministry of Non-Conventional Energy Resources, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, MNRE, in early 1980s. Solar Energy Corporation of India, SECI, a public sector undertaking, is responsible for the development of solar energy industry within the country. Hydroelectricity is administered separately by the Ministry of Power and not included in MNRE targets. Integrated Energy Policy 2006 has projected 800 gigawatt installed capacity in 2031-32. Around 40% of this, of 320 gigawatt, will come from non-fossil fuel energy. Now, considering the renewable energy potential in India, we have to go far at a very rapid pace. The technology is evolving fast and therefore research needs a big push. New materials like gallium arsenide and carbon nanotubes have the potential to increase solar efficiencies by, let's say, 50%. For wind energy growth, it may be necessary to have installation of mega offshore plants. The technology of wind towers has to be optimized using advanced techniques. At the same time, boost to other technology for the growth of bioenergy, waste management, geothermal, and ocean energies is also very necessary. Thank you for your kind attention. Jai Bharat.
Heartfelt thanks to Director ICAT for such an enlightening video message for all of us. Thank you, sir. We will start with the presentations now. If you have any question during presentation, I would request you all to kindly write them in chat section with the name of the speaker they are addressed to, and we will take those questions on your behalf at the end of the session. I'm sure knowledge in the presentation will give us better understanding on renewable energy and idea of India towards environment. Now, I'm so blessed to have the chance to introduce Sri Manoj Kumar Singh, founder Net Zero Think Private Limited. He is a visionary technocrat with an entrepreneurial spirit, having 17 years of versatile experience in renewable energy, infrastructure sector, and climate change. Besides that, as a community member of RN21 and contributed as an expert reviewer in yearly flagship report, Renewable Global Status Report 2018 to 2020, Renewable Energy in Asia 2019 report, Renewable in Cities 2019 report, Renewable Energy Policies in the Time of Transition report. So, I now request you to proceed. Kindly unmute yourself. So still you are not audible.
Is it audible now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks for kind introduction. So my screen is visible now?
Sir.
Visible.
Okay. Thank you so much. So Mr. Dinesh Tyagi has already given very good background about renewables, whatever things are happening in India, how India is leading in renewable sector. So I'll be focusing more on climate change and net zero side, where renewable is going to play a very important role. So my presentation is mainly focused on those areas. So as we know this, for sustainable development, 5P is very important. It starts with people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. So for sustainable development, these all elements need to be, present in any country or in any corporates or in any society. Then only it will, prosper in all ways. So for sustainability right now, one of the parameter what everyone is looking for, that is the ESG. ESG is in ESG, the environmental attribute is like carbon emissions, water, waste management, raw material sourcing, and climate change vulnerability. So these are the factors, which comes under environmental side of ESG. Second is social, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, labor management, data privacy, security, community, and relations. And third is the governance, which includes board governance, business ethics, intellectual property protection, etc. So ESG is something which is right now quite popular across corporates and industries, and people are right now talking about that. So I'll be covering more on to that aspect, but just I'm putting what is a RE installation right now in India. So this is the MNRE numbers. So as on November, we are close to 104 gigawatt of RE, which includes mainly wind and solar. So almost more than 90 gigawatt is coming from wind and solar, installation. Sector-wise, if we look at the emissions, what is the emission is happening globally at global scale. So energy contributes more than 73% of emissions globally. In energy, this Energy use in industry contributes around 24.2%. Transport sector is also having around 16.2% contribution in greenhouse gas emission. Energy use in building, that is like the building what for heating and cooling applications and including electricity. There also contribution is around 17.5. Cement industry, chemical industry, agriculture and forestry and land, those also contributes 18%, 5% respectively. So these are the sectors which are contributing directly or indirectly greenhouse gas emissions, and that need to be looked into. And so if you look at the India prospect, so India energy sector accounts around 67% of CO2 emission, which is compared to global average, it is still lesser. And as a country, we are close to we are the third third largest greenhouse gas emitter as a country after US and China. Now if I look, could you help me out? Some pop-ups are coming up. Can you tell me this how to? Yeah. So carbon emission wise, the per capita emission country wise, if we look at, so US is a leading polluter per capita wise, around 14.4 ton per annum. China is also having around 7.1. We are the per capita wise, if we look at, so our carbon footprint is very low. It's around 1.7 ton. And if you look at the India emissions, overall emissions, so coal plays very important role. Almost more than 1.5 gigaton is coming out of coal, out of 2.5 gigaton annual emissions. So if we look at, so we are the, as I told, like we are the right now coming, third largest CO2 emitter after China and US. So this area is something where India can lead, and where we can show the world the path of net zero, and we can further reduce this emission levels to further below at country level also. So why this emissions? Why we are talking about this? See, ultimately, the thing is, whatever we are emitting, it is going to atmosphere, and it is coming back, directly or indirectly in terms of climate change. So climate change is like it is happening in terms of temperature change, sea level rises, change in pattern of precipitation, change in pattern of storms. So, and it is impacting transport, energy, telecom, urban development, and even water. So directly or indirectly, this emissions, whatever we are emitting from various practices or businesses, this is impacting our day-to-day life, and it is going to have severe impact further, even on the human health. Also, it is going to have severe impacts. So this needs to be taken care and looked into seriously. Now, what is a net zero? This word is very became famous in past 3-4 months when COP26 happened, and then our Prime Minister also given a commitment of net zero. So the net zero emission will be achieved when all the greenhouse gas emission released by human are counterbalanced by removing greenhouse gas from atmosphere in a process known as carbon removal. So carbon removal is very important for net zero from atmosphere. First and foremost, human caused emission such as those from fossil fuel vehicles and factories should be reduced as close to zero as possible. Any remaining greenhouse gas should be balanced with an equivalent amount of carbon removal, which can happen through things like restoring forest or using direct air capture and storage. Reaching net zero emission is akin to achieve climate neutrality. So net zero is very, very important term, and it is going to decide how the climate would be for future generation. So if we look at the global timeline to reach the net zero, the 2.0 scenarios says net zero greenhouse gas emission can be achieved if we follow 2.0 scenarios, then by end of this century. And if we follow 1.5 degree scenario, then it is expected between 2060 to 70 net zero at global level can be achieved. But lots of things need to be done by all industries, corporates, and individuals, including individuals, to meet those 1.5 degree target. So as a country, India, we are following right now 2 degrees we are aligned with 2 degree target, but we have to further work on to reduce that by 1.5 degree. We have to entail in those lines. So in that also net zero CO2, if you look at greenhouse gas is a one element. If we look at CO2 portion, that has to become net zero for 1.5 degrees Celsius by between 2040 to 50. So this is a global benchmark where really people have to work, government have to work to make this happen if we really want. What is the difference between direct and indirect emissions? These are the things like people may ask. So greenhouse gas protocol, this is one of the statutory governing body which defines the direct and indirect emission as follows. Direct greenhouse gas emissions are emissions from source that are owned or controlled by reporting entity. Any corporates, any government, or any individual also may come under that. Indirect greenhouse gas emissions are emissions that are a consequence of activities of reporting entity but occur at source owned or controlled by another entity. So the greenhouse protocol further categorizes these direct and indirect emissions into three broad scopes. Scope 1 means all direct greenhouse gas emissions. Scope 2 is indirect greenhouse gas emissions from consumptions of purchased electricity, heat, or steam. So whatever corporates or industries or SMEs are consuming heat, electricity, or power, from that they can fulfill their scope 2 requirement. And scope 3 is other indirect emissions such as extraction and production of purchased material and fuel, transport related activities in vehicle not owned or controlled by reporting entity, electricity related activities not covered in scope 2, outsource activities, waste disposal. So these are basically scope 3 is basically indirect emissions which is related to upstream and downstream supply chains. Now, what is India's net zero ambition 2070? So in COP26, our respective Prime Minister has committed for 500 gigawatt non-fossil fuel energy capacity by 2030. 50% energy requirement through renewables by 2030. We have already crossed around 40% energy requirement. Cut down net projected carbon emissions by 1 billion ton from now until 2030, bring down carbon intensity of its economy by more than 45% by 2030, and net zero target or net zero emission target by 2070. So this is India's ambition 2070, and the focus on renewables, electricity, mobility, energy efficiency, compensatory afforestation are going to play a very important role and will help India to move closer to net zero target. The good thing is SEBI has also recently made it mandatory for top 1,000 listed companies to report their ESG practices. This would ensure that all such companies make sure that they are sustainable in their practices and do not cause any environmental harm, including any emissions contributing towards global warming. ESG is a great tool to boost economic growth, and it will minimize environmental cost and promote overall well-being. The shift to sustainability and the cost to move towards environment compliance is still a challenge in India, especially for the small and medium enterprises. There is therefore a need to project the shift to sustainability as a long-term opportunity rather than looking at short-term costs. So we have to consider this as an opportunity, not as a short-term cost. So net zero technology, if we look at, so these are the 5 groups of technology which it is estimated by some firm, international firm, that it could attract 2 trillion capital per year by 2025, and it will help to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2050. In technology, in electrification, which are going to play a very important role, are electric vehicle batteries, battery control software, efficient building system, industrial electrification. And in this area, the investment it is expected will be around 700 to 1 trillion. And same for agriculture, it will be zero emissions, farm equipment, meat alternative, methane inhibitors, anaerobic manure processing, bioengineering. Here also the investment opportunity is 400 to 600 billion. For power grid side, long duration storage, advanced control software, communication system, vehicle to grid integration. This is also going to play a very important role. Building to grid integration, next generation nuclear, and high efficiency materials. So in power grid side, these technologies are going to play a very important role. Hydrogen, which is now very hot topic, green hydrogen especially. So in this low cost production of hydrogen, transportation, road and ammonia production, steel production, aviation fuel, these area technologies are going to play very important. On carbon capture side, pre and post combustion capture technologies, direct air capture, bioenergy with carbon capture and storage, biochar, CO2 enriched concrete. So in concrete mixing also, lots of R&D is happening. So in that area also there is lots of scope to reduce emissions. So these are the technologies which are going to play a very important role in coming years, and we have to develop our capability as a country, towards this technology. Then action required to achieve net zero emission. So policy, technology, and behavior change. These are very important. And 10 key elements or key solutions needed to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. Number one, it is to phase out the coal plants. Whatever the coal plants we have, one by one we have to phase out that and develop, alternative solutions, and we have to invest in clean energy and efficiency improvement. Then retrofitting of buildings, that is also a very important thing. Fourth is decarbonize cement, steel, and plastic. So these industries are also, we have to decarbonize the process or wherever there is a possibility, especially in cement, steel, and plastic industry. Shifting to electric vehicle, that is a fifth option. Sixth is increase public transport. So as much as possible, especially in cities, we should increase public transport usage and incentivize people to use that. Decarbonize aviation and shipping industry. So that is also very much needed to reach net zero target. halt deforestation, and restore degradation of land. So this is also very much needed, and we have to seriously work on those areas. Reduce food loss and waste, that is also very much needed. And the last is eat more plants and less meat. So these are the action, from corporate level or from individual side or from country level side, people can take to become net zero. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your views and enlightening us with the words of wisdom. They will definitely help us steer our way in times to come. Now, let me take the opportunity to introduce Mr. Avinash Kumar Singh, founder and CEO of DIY Guru, an IIT Delhi-based organization established in 2017 and having been affiliated with ASDC, Government of India, having 5 lakh students studying online for Industry 4.0, mainly into automotive engineering. Besides that, he has led upskilling programs for Suzuki, Bosch, and Hyundai. He is passionate about promoting maker culture globally and is a mentor to maker communities in India and abroad. Sir, I now request you to proceed.
Thank you so much. My screen is visible.
Yes, sir. So please continue.
Okay, great. So, welcome everyone. Thank you to the whole ICAT team, and it was great hearing you, Manojji. Great insight into the net zero part. My expertise is basically into the electric vehicle domain, and when I got this message from ICAT about being a panelist, I was doing some research on the recent uh, trends in the net zero industry. So I have actually divided the whole session into two parts. One, I will be covering on the basics of the net zero emission, which you have already covered a brief detailed into that, and then if time permits, I will get into the future mobility part. So before going into the discussion, I would like to tell, what DIY Guru is basically. We are a future mobility upskilling platform, which is accredited by ASDC, Automotive Skill Development Council, and Ministry of Education, Government of India. We are also impaneled by AICT. There is National Education Policy 2020, which has been recently launched, and into that impanelment, we are there. So we are catering to corporate clients and lots of professionals in electric vehicle industry, and this to and fro of the information has been happening from academia and industry from last 3-4 years. uh, these are all some of our partners which we are actively working with, and the engineers which basically are getting trained from our side are variety of engineers which are basically in the domain of automobile engineering, mechanical engineering, manufacturing engineering, chemical engineering, electrical engineering, and power electronics, material science engineering, and environmental engineers. So these are some of the broad domains in which we do possess some expertise, and also kind of the courses that we run on our platform trains people into these domains like CA engineers, thermal engineers, embedded engineers, vehicle simulation engineers, design engineers, software and hardware design engineers, power electronics engineers. So these are some of the variety of roles that we had. Now, the point where we are discussing about net zero and COP26. So basically, net zero, as already told by Manoj, it is achieved by balancing emission of carbon dioxide with its removal, right? So the removal technique of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere can be done by some of the technologies which has been recently into the limelight. I think there is a company which has been well funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and then dump it back into the earth. So what we are trying to achieve is basically we are trying to enter into a post-carbon economy. So post-carbon means the pre-carbon is the economy which was relying on carbon-based fuels before, and then the economy which everyone is predicting that by 2030 we would be able to achieve. I mean, in India, 50% of the total energy will be by renewables. So we are still telling that, okay, net zero we will be achieving by 2070. But yes, by 2030, there is a target that, okay, we will be achieving 50% of our energy through renewable sources. So we are telling that, okay, post-carbon economy we can achieve by 2030 itself. Now, COP26 is basically the name which it has derived is from the 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference, which is commonly referred to as COP26. And it was the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference, which was held at Glasgow just recently in November 2021. Now, during that time, every country has some say, some of the promises they used to make with regard to cutting down the emissions. So I think before 2010, we had Kyoto Protocol, and then came the other protocols into the climate change mitigation, and this particular conference was targeted to kind of achieve this net zero emission. So every country has set different target. I mean, if you talk about countries like Italy, Germany, they had a target of 2050, while India has a target of 2070. China keep a target of 2060. So every country has different target. Now, this target is basically to reach net zero carbon emission, and there is also a promise that the share of renewables in the total energy mix will be increased from 38% in 2020 to 50% in 2030. So the post-carbon economy, which we were talking about, it's a low-carbon economy which is based on energy sources that produce low level of greenhouse gases called emissions, and GHG emission due to anthropogenic, I mean, human activity are dominant cause of climate change since the mid 20th century. And there is a it's called G Gallo index, which is there. If you find out, if you search on the internet, you will find out this index. Basically, it identifies the winners and losers after energy transition, which will happen in the post-carbon economy. So let's say those countries which were basically the dominant players in the diesel and petrol industry, I mean the carbon fuel industry, were basically Saudi Arabia and Russia and US. These countries, they had big pool of resources in terms of carbon fuels. But what happens to these countries if this transition will happen? So many of the time we will hear this, that some of the political nations are not willing to transit slowly because they seems like their GDP will be affected because of this transition. And that's what we are trying to achieve. We are trying to achieve a net zero by doing a conference and putting up a target for every country. So this particular term called green industrial revolution, it's a term which has been coined by Bill Gates he coined this term recently. I mean, in November 2021, he was also there in the COP26 conference, and he basically told that we actually are always talking about fourth industrial revolution, third industrial revolution, second, first, which has already passed. But now there is a much need for us to involve ourselves in green industrial revolution. So as you know, fourth industrial revolution is all about connectivity. We are going to see a trend of sharing economy. So uh, now you see that energy is being shared in many of the countries like Norway, Sweden. People are actually sharing the energy which they are generating from solar on the rooftop back to the grid. So they are harvesting the energy, that is the renewable energy, and they are sharing with others who are there in the need of that. So right now, in the electric vehicle domain, you see electric vehicles are coming with connected, they are even called as connected mobility, because there is a lot of data which is being transmitted from vehicle to the grid. And this data which is being transferred is humongous. I mean, sometimes this data comes at a rate of somewhere around every 1 to 2 minutes. Some 2.5 GB of data is being stored somewhere on the cloud, because everything which is there in your car, which is connected, your car is basically containing more than 100 of sensors, and these sensors are always interacting with the environment, outside environment, and giving you some details about that. So all these data are being transferred, and there is so much of connectivity which we are right now seeing. So this is what we generally refer to as fourth industrial revolution, connected industry. So the point is, as an individual, I mean, right now we are celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, and we are talking about uh, people, the youth, to take action, the individual action which they can take to contribute to the whole climate change scenario. Now, if you actually see from individual perspective, you will find out that in the last 20 to 30 years, I mean, talk about 1990s. In 1992, first climate change, uh, the effective climate change conference was held. And during 1992, it was decided that at that time you might be hearing about this ozone layer depletion. So ozone layer depletion, nowadays, you won't be hearing this term ozone layer depletion very much. But during our classes, I mean, when we were in class 7th, 8th, 9th, we were mostly hearing about this ozone layer depletion. So what happened to that? If you look back, it was the most robust action which all the nations across world took, and they kind of reduced the production of chlorofluorocarbon, and they substituted with it with other materials. So now what happens is, we are all talking about policies, government subsidies, even government of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, when he was there in the COP26, he actually emphasized on this thing that if developing countries like India, Bangladesh are not getting financial subsidy in terms of leveraging or utilizing renewable energy, it comes at a certain cost, because those countries which have already got developed, right? If you talk about US, if you talk about countries which has higher capita income, GDP is high. These countries has already gone through that carbon based economy. They have already polluted the environment, and now they are shifting. They are already developed, and they are shifting to carbon neutral phase. But for developing countries like India, where constructions and where energy transition and the demand for energy is going to increase at a such huge rate, we can say that for us it would be pretty it is a bit difficult for us to transit into total cleaner energy, but yes, we are trying a bit. Now, on an individual basis, the things that you can do to reduce your carbon footprint is what I'm going to explain. So first, you need to understand what is carbon footprint. I think Manoj ji has already explained this. It's a measure of total amount of greenhouse gases released into the atmosphere as a result of an individual organization or a nation action. It is actually measured in tons of carbon dioxide. So it is a CO2e, carbon dioxide equivalent. Now, how do you measure the emissions which is being released, right? So measuring emissions comes uh, on on uh, on an individual basis and on a nation basis. Like it can be actually, it cannot be said that okay, this is the amount of emission which particular uh, person is emitting. So uh, let's say that if you are buying any device which is produced in China, right? So the emission which is involved in producing, shipping, and using the device is actually attributed to India, right? Because you are the consumer who is consuming that product, so the net emission will be attributed to the Indian economy, right? Obviously, because it's bit harder, because the kind of energy which is being used to develop that product has gone in the China, but because you are using that product in India, it is being attributed to India. So somewhere down the line, the definition is quite obscure. For example, you can say in the UK, 2018 data shows that annual emission of 448.5 million tons of carbon dioxide were released, and as compared to 1990, it was basically 43% down. The amount of emissions were down. So consumption of emission data takes into account who is responsible for the emission, no matter where they are produced. Right. On a global average, if you talk about emissions, these are some of the countries which has been leading in terms of emission per capita. Australia, United States, Canada, China, United Kingdom, India, Nigeria, some of the top countries on a global scale. So the biggest cause of this particular emission is attributed to the burning of fossil fuel, agriculture, land use changes, and forestry, industrial processes, and of course the waste materials. So let's say you want to check how much carbon footprint you are releasing into the atmosphere. There is a website called carbonfootprint.com/calculator. You go to this website and you will find out, they will ask certain questions, and then you can calculate what is the amount of carbon footprint you are releasing, or your particular carbon footprint which you are consuming. Uh, and there is a very interesting trivia that just 100 companies in the world are responsible for around 71% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Now, these are some of the individual practices which you can follow in your daily life to have a better health and to have also reduce your carbon footprint, and in some way or the other you are basically contributing to the net zero target which is there to achieve, right? It might be very small, but a small contribution to the whole bigger ecosystem also counts a bit. So number one, this is the best thing I like about being carbon neutral, because there is a trend which has been going on with regard to going vision, and I think it is a good practice altogether. That this is a very nice picture which illustrates this is the food chain basically, and it is always advised to have better in this range, because this is where you are taking out the food from the land, and as 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 long as you go up, and you are basically, what you are doing is that food is being processed. So the energy is consumed in processing that food, and that is releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So it is always advisable to choose organic and local foods, reduce your food wastage, and compost your food. Like if the food is to be thrown out, it has to be composted properly so that it can go back into the atmosphere. Now, plastic is also one of the major contributor. Single-use plastic, right? There is a trend that whenever we go to market, we take plastic and then we throw it away. So this has to be one thing which you can start following from today onwards, because the here you can see these are the 9 reasons to refuse single-use plastic. Made from fossil fuels, they have a huge carbon footprint, and these single-use plastic will stay, on the earth for hundreds of years. Only a tiny percentage of it is recycled. If this is a drink which is being served in a single-use plastic, it can release toxins as well, causes hormones disruptions and cancers, pollute our oceans, kill marine animals, and there are so many issues with single-use plastic. So this is something that you can follow in your daily life. Uh, you should always emphasize on practices which enhance, reduce, reuse, and recycle trends. So there are three, methods of following any, using any product. So what happens? You take the product, you make it in a factory, and you consume, and then you put it in a waste. Or if you are going for a recycling, you take it, you make that, again consume back, you get it recycled, and another instance it is going under the factory, then again it is being getting into a chain. While in a circular thing, what it is doing is you are basically taking a resource, making it into a product, into the factory, consuming it, repairing it, reusing it, and recycling it. So this is the best practice which is there to be followed. Now, on an industry level, also, people can start thinking about companies which are emphasizing on reduce, reuse, and recycle trends, and can use their products instead. Again, renewables, going renewable is one thing that is the thing which can help us to get into net zero, as told by Manoj ji as well. Getting into hydroelectric power, wave energy, tidal energy, solar energy, biomass energy, geothermal, wind energy. So in terms of electric vehicle, whenever we kind of, I give a lot of webinars and attend conferences. There we talk about grid to the power that is being released on the grid, right, and being used by the electric vehicle. So from there we see that uh, the effectiveness can only be increased if the grid which is producing electricity is either of them, right? If you are actually releasing the energy using coal, and then running the electric vehicle, recharging the electric vehicle using the energy which is released from coal, you are not basically contributing much on the emission part, right? So it is always advisable to use renewable energy sources from the grid, although it is a bit difficult, but yes, quite achievable. Okay, this is one thing. I mean, cycling to work. Uh, Companies can follow this. Maybe one day they can ask their employees, of course, for not those who are living far away. I mean, the close one can basically cycle from their home to the office. For us, we stay in Delhi. We have offices in Delhi, so we can have this. Okay, employees can come from their home to the office using cycle just one day. It is one practice which can be induced. Many a times we see that while traveling we used to have like we don't take any water bottles from our home, and we are in a practice of buying these water bottles. So it's one thing that we can use in our daily life is to always keep a water bottle, so that we don't actually need to buy another plastic water bottle and then put it into waste. Also, clothings also create a lot of emissions. I mean, on the part of increasing carbon footprint, because the clothes which you basically use is getting you're throwing it away by using it for 1 month, 2 months, or maximum 6 months, and then the in producing these clothes, I mean, if you talk from the bottom of the cycle to the top user, where the consumer is basically consuming that cloth, it has gone through so much of pages, and so much of energy has got involved in making this cloth, that it actually increases the carbon footprint. So one thing that you can do is, uh, you can buy those clothes which are better, which can last longer, and also, you need not to wash these clothes in cold water rather than, I mean, sorry, you wash this in cold water rather than in hot water, because again, doing washing in hot water, this is a winter season, and most of the people, they prefer washing clothes in hot water, so not preferable at all. Again, you are consuming the energy. Shopping in terms of saving you the energy which comes with your appliances. If you're shopping for appliances, lighting, office equipment, electronics, look for Energy Star products which are certified and more efficient, and buy less stuff, buy those stuff which can be recycled. There is a big trend of not using desktops right now, because desktops basically take a lot more energy compared to laptops. So this is one reason where, logic which you can put when buying either a laptop or a desktop. So again, you can go for this. While making homes, I think a smart energy auditor right now, it's easily available in India. Previously, it was a trend in US. For if you are going to make any house, whether the house is properly, in terms of energy, is it audited or not. Now a culture has started in India about building smart homes and smart cities. So there we are now seeing this trend of building homes which comes with airtight constructions, air sealing, insulators, having better insulations, or using bulbs which are light emitting diode bulbs, LED bulbs, not your fluorescent bulbs, which actually emits more heat and consumes much of your energy. In terms of transportation, yes, we are an advocate of future mobility. So electric vehicle is one thing where we are working, and we are very sure that electric vehicle will be a major contributor in terms of helping people to achieve net zero emission. The recommendation is that, let's say that, I have to go from here, the place where I'm staying, Malviya Nagar, to Connaught Place. Uh, Sometimes it uh, it feels to me, okay, can I go via metro, or can I use public transport, or should I drive my own car? But it is always advisable that if you're going for a less distance commute, it is you can leave your car at home and try to uh, do a walk. That will be healthier as well. uh, Use less air conditioning while you drive. Sometimes it is very advisable to accommodate your temperature, body temperature, with the environment. Consider purchasing a hybrid and electric vehicle, yes, of course, and avoid flying if possible. Go economy class. Economy class is why advisable, because in terms of, you see, the seat arrangement in business and economy class, basically the if there are 10 seats in the business class, these 10 seats are basically occupying at least 20 more seats which could be accommodated in that place. So some way or the other, that is increasing the carbon footprint of the air flight. There is a very big trend which we see right now of selling and buying carbon credits. There are companies in India which has got involved in this industry. What they are doing is basically, uh, it's a trading now. Even a share market, you will see that carbon offset, carbon credit buying and selling will come into the share market as well. And what happens basically in this is it's an amount of money that a company which is basically a coal or the carbon emission based company is going to pay some money to buy carbon credits from a the player who is actually doing the what do you call producing energy via renewable sources. So let me cite you an example. There is a company called Blue Smart Mobility here in Delhi, and what they used to do is they used to sell the amount of carbon which they are saving right now in India, and they used to sell it to other company in US. Can you imagine how you know good thing this is? I mean, you are basically saving some amount of carbon, and then that amount of carbon which you are saving because of the deployment of electric vehicles on the road, you are basically selling back to the company which is you know releasing carbon. So it's basically a compensation strategy if you talk about that is currently happening on a global scale. And there is a website called indiancarbon.org. If you go on to that website, it's a very dedicated website on carbon credits and carbon offset. It will tell you how many of the countries in the sub-Saharan region and this African region have started, you know, uh, saving their natural resources, planting trees, saving the community there by getting some funds from the developed countries in terms of uh, buying credits and selling credits. So in brief, if you talk about the whole net zero strategy on an individual level, I think installation of solar PV on your rooftop. Wind farming, of course, it's a government policy and it needs a lot of government incentive and company interference. But yes, it is one solution. Revegetation, planting more trees, landfill gas or carbon capture, which we were talking about in terms of uh, the recycling of the air, carbon dioxide into the air, and then clean cook stove technology, fire management, cattle management. So basically, we have to reduce the consumption of meat. What happens is that the dung which is being produced from the cattle, they consist of methane gas, and methane is again one of the major contributors in the emission. Now, whenever there is a huge demand of meat, the number of cattle which is there in the farms, the number increases, and in turn, it is affecting on the net zero thing. So you can reduce your carbon footprint by using these strategies. Uh, Thank you for your time. Time permits, I could go for future mobility, but I think it's done. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for your time. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for sharing your views and enlightening us with the words of wisdom. Now, there are a few questions from our audience. The first question from Mr. Krishna Govind to Mr. Manoj. Can renewable energy replace fossil fuels completely?
See, this is a big question, but the answer is yes. We have to look into long-term alternates, like green hydrogen is one of the alternates which can replace fossil fuel. So the answer is yes, but not immediately. It will take time. But technology needs to be developed, and commercially also it should be viable. But it is possible. So the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Second question from Ms. Supriya to Mr. Avinash. When we are talking about complete switchover from combustion engines to EVs, what plans does government has for recycling the batteries?
Okay. Recycling the batteries, I think it's still under the nascent stage, although the government is pushing startups to come up with different strategies. But altogether, if you talk about the dump of the lithium ions, which is mostly there in the batteries, uh, it would be a bit difficult task. Nowadays, the recycling process, what is happening is, let's say that I'm using lithium-ion battery in an electric vehicle, which is, let's say, for example, I'm talking about MG EV or Hyundai Kona. So what happens that the electric vehicle battery, which is being used in these cars, uh, the end of the life cycle of these batteries comes at a stage when there is a high chance that these batteries can again be used in my inverter. I mean, the inverter which I use in at my home, you can use those batteries into that plants as well. Other than that, the four-wheeler batteries, electric vehicle batteries can be used in the three-wheeler electric rickshaw, which does not need that much amount of power consumption as such. So still we are on a stage, even two-wheeler companies have started saying that, okay, you buy my bike, and after 3-4 years, once the battery life gets over, we will give you the new battery, or you can sell the old battery to us at this particular price. So in that stage also, they have partnered with some of the players which is there in the industry, and what they will do is they will basically take these batteries and put it in some other uh, mainstream usage. So that's what is currently happening.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Once again, a question from Mr. Krishna Govind to Mr. Manoj. What renewable energies is best in comparison with solar, wind, and hybrid?
I couldn't understand the question. The question of what I understood is what
So,
renewable
actually,
technology is
question
best.
is,
Yeah.
I'm repeating the question. Which renewable energy is best if we compare solar, wind, and hybrid?
See, we cannot say anything is best or worst. It's like, there should be a combination of various technologies, as Avinash already showed, in renewable hydro, wind, geothermal. So it depends on the availability of the resources, what resources is available in that particular geography. Based on that, we can say this technology for this particular geography, for this type of application is good. So it depends on the requirement, which type of requirement is there and where you are putting your renewables. If you are going for example, Rajasthan, where lots of sun rays or sunshine is there, so their solar will perform very good. If you are going to Gujarat, or if you are going to some other areas where wind potential is high, their wind will perform very good. If you are going to northeast, where hydro potential is high, so their hydro will perform better. If you go to some other states where geothermal potential is there, so their geothermals can be explored in better way, and that is going to perform well. So we have to see all the gamut of energy mix, and then every technology is having its own advantage. So we have to see in a holistic way. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. We, on the behalf of ICAT, once again thanks all the speakers of the session for gracing today's webinar with your presence and wonderful presentation. Thank you all delegates and attendees for your attention and active participation. I hope you found today's webinar informative and useful. Thank you all for signing in. With this, I'm concluding this webinar. Wishing you all a very nice day ahead. Stay healthy, stay safe. Thank you all.